Hello everyone, welcome to EduTap and welcome to the Finance 360-degree session in which we cover the relevant and important finance current affairs and the RBI notifications, RBI press releases which are important from your exam perspective. So here you can see that there is the release of data that has been done by the Reserve Bank of India. So the Reserve Bank of India has released the data for the balance of payment during the 2023-24. And with this balance of payment data, there is the sources of variation in India's foreign exchange reserves. This data has also been released for the 2023-24, which is very much interlinked with the data of the balance of payment. So we will understand that what is the data that has been released, what is the linkage between the balance of payment and the foreign exchange reserves, as well as the news articles like there is the surplus that has happened in the current account. So which quarter are we talking about? So quarterly data has been released. So how important it is, what idea you need to have from this. So all of these important things we are going to discuss in today's session. I will tell you that what is important from these headings, from these topics, okay? But the balance of data, the balance of payment data for the 2023-24 that has been released, that is very important from the exam perspective that we are going to discuss in today's session. So good morning everyone, good morning. And good to see all of you here. So now before starting with the session, do subscribe to the YouTube channel and join our Telegram channel for the PDF of the session. So the PDF you will get in the Telegram channel and the link for the Telegram channel is provided in the description box below. So let's start with the news article. Let's start with the topic, that is the sources of variation in India's foreign exchange reserves during April to March 2023-24. So what has happened that from the April 2023 to March 2024, that is for the previous financial year, that is the financial year 24, there is the foreign exchange reserves that have increased in our country. Okay, so why the increase has happened? So what is the source of variation in the foreign exchange reserves that we are going to understand? So the Reserve Bank of India has released the balance of payment data for the fourth quarter, that is from January 2024 to March 2024. So for the fourth quarter, this is the fourth quarter for the financial year 2024. So for this fourth quarter, the data has been released by the Reserve Bank of India in its website. On the basis of these data, the sources of variation in the foreign exchange reserves during the 23-24 has been taken out, that how much foreign exchange reserves have increased during this particular financial year. So what is the change that has been brought in the foreign exchange reserves? So we have understood that. So let's see that what is the data first of all. So this is the data for the balance of payment till here. So here you can see that in the current account, that is current account balance of payment, that is how much transactions. Balance of payment shows that how much transactions a country is doing with the rest of the world. Okay, how much economic transactions India is doing with the rest of the world, how much import, export, how much investments we are doing in the other country, how much investments are coming into our country. So balance of payment records all of these transactions that a country is doing with the rest of the world, right? So the balance of payment is divided into two accounts, the current account and the capital account. So we are starting in the balance of payment, we are starting with the current account. So in the current account, you have the trade in goods. The trade is happening in goods, the import is happening. So export of the goods is happening minus import of the goods is happening. So for the export, you are earning the foreign exchange reserves. So for the exports, we are earning the foreign exchange reserves, and for the imports, we have to pay the foreign exchange reserves. Then there is the trade in services that is happening. The trade in services is happening. So we are providing the services, we are exporting our factor services, non-factor services, for which we are earning the foreign exchange reserves, and we have to pay the foreign exchange reserves also for the import that we are doing. So we are exporting the services for which we are getting the foreign exchange reserves. We are importing the services for which we have to pay the foreign exchange reserves. Okay. Then there is the transfer payments, that is grants. We are giving grants to some other countries are giving grants to our country, as well as there are the remittances. That means, let's say we are getting the remittances from Dubai, from Singapore, from these countries, we are getting the remittances, the people in our country. Okay, from your relatives abroad, you are getting the remittances. Similarly, you are also giving the remittances to your children that are living abroad, to your siblings that are living abroad. So we are getting the foreign exchange reserves, or we are getting the foreign exchange and we are paying the foreign exchange. Okay, so always when we talk about net exports, or when we talk about net trade in services. So always we want to see that how much has come into our country minus how much we have paid to the other countries. Okay, so this current account, in the current account, the balance is, that means it is minus 23.3. That means how much we have received, is less than how much we have paid. In the current account, if we see the trade in goods, the trade in services, and the transfer payments. So in this current account, the three components, there is the deficit that has happened in total. So the deficit that has happened is of $23.3 billion. $23.3 billion. This is the deficit that has happened in the current account. Okay, current account, the deficit has happened of 23.3 billions. Now, this is about the current account. I hope this is very much clear that in the current account, we have faced the deficit of 23.3 billion. That means, let's say 100 rupees has come into our country, $100 has come into our country, but we are paying $123.3 to the other countries. So that means we are having the deficit of $23.3 as we are paying more to the other countries. Now coming to the capital account, that is the second account of the balance of payment. In the capital account, we see all the investments and the borrowings. So we see the investments that we are doing, investments that we are getting. So capital account is also in the net, amount. So capital account is in the net. Capital account, first of all, capital account consists of the investment, that is in the foreign direct investment, the foreign portfolio investment. So net means the capital account we have to see in the net terms. Net, I have told you that how much is coming in minus how much is going out. How much money is coming in, how much dollars is coming in, minus how much dollars are flowing out. That is the net in the capital account, or net in the balance of payment always means that how much is coming in our country minus how much we are paying to outside. So net FDI means that how much FDI, foreign direct investment, is coming into our country minus how much we have to pay to the other countries, Foreign portfolio investment, how much portfolio investment is coming into our country minus how much we have to pay outside. Then we have the external commercial borrowings, that is we are getting the borrowings, we are getting the money minus we are also providing the money. Okay, we are also lending the money. Then there is the external assistance, we are getting the external assistance minus we are providing the external assistance. So this is the net that we are seeing. Okay, so in the foreign direct investment, you can see that the net foreign direct investment is how much? $9.8 billion. $9.8 billion. This is the net FDI that has happened in this year. Okay, then the net FPI is very high. The net FPI is very high. The foreign portfolio investment that has come into our country, it is $44.1 billion. So you can understand that a lot of portfolio investment has flown into our country because the net portfolio investment is $44.1 billion. So we are getting the investments, the portfolio investment, we are doing the portfolio investment in the other countries also. But the net amount is $44.1 billion. Okay. Now this banking capital is also there. Banking capital means that there are many non-resident Indians, or there are many non-residents, foreigners, that are depositing their money in our country. Okay, so the deposits that are coming into our country, this is the liability for our country because we have to return this money, because these are the individuals that are living abroad. So they can take their money at any time, but the banking capital is how much? The banking capital is $40.5 billion, as there is the deposits that have flown into our country. The foreigners are depositing in our country, the NRIs are depositing in our country. Okay. Then there is the short-term credit that we have taken minus how much we have paid. So this is this is in negative. That means we have lent the short-term credit. We have provided more of we are getting less short-term credit, but we are providing more short-term credit. That's why the net amount is in negative. External assistance is in positive. We have got the external assistance. How much external assistance we are getting? Let's say we are getting the external assistance of $17.5 billion, while we are providing the external assistance of $10 billion. So in total, $7.5 billion is the net external assistance, extra external assistance that we are getting. So I hope you are getting the point that we have to see net amount. That means how much is coming in minus how much we are paying. Okay, so this is the capital account consists of the foreign investment, that is foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, banking capital, short-term assistance or short-term credit, external assistance, external commercial borrowings, that is also in external commercial borrowings is also in positive. That means more money is flowing into our country as compared to what is flowing out of the country. Okay, so other items in the capital account, that means errors and omissions or the SDR allocations. So this is in negative. Okay, errors and omissions can happen, so that is also taken into account in other items, as well as SDR allocations, or there is some kind of money, like let's say Tata has earned the profits, but that profits has not entered into our country because they are being kept in the foreign currency accounts. So after 100 days, after 180 days, they will come into our country. So that is, this is the other items in the capital account, that is the money that is in the foreign accounts that has to come into our country. So that is taken in the other items in capital account. So this is the capital account. What is the difference between FPI and FDI? So foreign portfolio investment. This is happening in portfolios like the bonds. Foreigners are buying the bonds, shares, securities in our countries, derivatives in our country. The foreign direct investment, like the Standard Chartered Bank has opened a subsidiary into our country. There is the Apple US company that has opened a store into our country. FDI is the foreign direct investment where the physical units are being set in our country. The subsidiaries, the branches are being set into our country, or there is a majority or there is a holding of the Indian company by the foreigners. Like the foreigners are having a good share into the Indian companies. So that is FDI. When the foreigners are opening their branches, subsidiaries into our country, okay, they are bringing their money, they are bringing their dollars to set up their subsidiaries into our country, or they are buying heavy shares or huge amount of shares in the Indian companies. So they are having the controlling interest into the Indian companies. So that is FDI. FPI, when they are buying bonds, shares just for the trading purpose, just for the short term, like for the purpose of the trading. Okay, that is FPI, foreign portfolio investment. Is it clear? So in the current account, you have got the deficit. In the current account, you have got the deficit of 23.3. So this is the deficit. That means we have got less as compared to how much we have spent in the current account. But in the capital account, we have got the surplus of how much? 87.0. We have got the surplus of 87.0. That means we have got more amount as compared to how much we have paid. So net amount is in surplus of 87.0. So balance of payment, what is the situation of the balance of payment? It is in surplus or deficit, anyone? It is in surplus or deficit, anyone? Can tell me? So current account, it is in deficit. Capital account, it is in surplus. So what is the situation of the balance of payment? We have also taken errors and omissions in the other items in capital account. So there is no errors and omissions that is left. So in the balance of payment, can you tell me that what is the situation? The current account is in deficit, but the capital account is in surplus. So in the balance of payment, you have the surplus of how much? $63.7 billion. So we have got, in the balance of payment, we have got the surplus of $63.7 billion. So here you can see, yes, very good. On a balance of payment basis, that is excluding the valuation effect. I will tell you that what is this valuation effect, but just leave it for now. On the balance of payment basis, there is the foreign exchange reserves has increased by US dollar 63.7 billion. That means the surplus has happened of 63.7 billion during the 2023-24 as against. So in the previous year, if you saw, the deficit in the current account was 67. In the previous year, the deficit in the previous year 2022-23, the deficit in the current account was 67.1, while the surplus in the capital account was 57.9. 57.9. That means in the balance of payment, there was deficit or surplus. There was deficit or surplus. So balance of payment has two accounts. If we balance the accounts out, so here you can see that the balance of payment had the deficit of $9.8 billion nearly. Okay, so the balance of payment, sorry, $9.1 billion. So balance of payment was having a deficit in the previous year. in the previous year, the balance of payment was having a deficit of $9.1 billion. While in 2023-24, there is the surplus in the balance of payment that is of $63.7 billion. So this is a huge achievement we can say, or this is a huge change that has happened, that from the deficit position, that from a deficit position in the balance of payment of $9.1 billion, we have moved to the surplus situation in the balance of payment. That is, the surplus is of $63.7 billion, as well as you can see that how much the current account deficit has reduced. So that means our exports must have increased to some extent also. So this is the idea, right? So here, now valuation change. What is valuation change? So till now, till here, this is the balance of payment situation till here. Okay. Now valuation change. This is in regards to this is the balance of payment wala situation. Now this third point, that is the valuation change. This is shown in the foreign exchange reserves. Now do you know that what consists of foreign exchange reserves? The foreign currency. The RBI is keeping the foreign currency in the form of dollars, yen, yuan, the pound sterling and euro. So RBI is keeping the foreign currency assets in the 5 currencies. RBI is also keeping gold. So what happened that in the 2023-24, the gold prices increased. So the valuation of gold also increased. The valuation of gold increased to $4.3 billion. That's why if we see the balance of payment surplus happened as $63.7 billion. And there is the valuation change that happened. That means the gold prices that were kept in the foreign exchange reserves in the 2023-24, the gold prices increased. The value increased to 4.3. So here you can see that 68.0. This is the $68 billion. $68 billion of the foreign exchange reserves have increased by $68 billion. So this is the idea that here you can see change in foreign exchange reserves including the valuation effect. So that is $68 billion. In the balance of payment, the balance of payment surplus that has happened is of $63.7 billion. So balance of payment surplus has happened of $63.7 billion. In this, if you add the increase in the value of gold that is kept in the foreign exchange reserves, so that is $4.3 billion. So in total, the foreign exchange reserves have increased by $68 billion. So simply if you summarize this all, in 2023-24, the balance of payment has got the surplus of $63.7 billion. In 2023-24, the gold prices has increased. So valuation change has happened. The valuation has increased of the gold reserves that the RBI is keeping by $4.3 billion. So in total, the foreign exchange reserves have increased because of the balance of payment surplus and the valuation change that has happened in gold, that is $68.0 billion. So this is the total change that has happened. Okay. So as compared to the depletion in the balance of payment in the previous year. So in the previous year, the balance of payment depleted by 9.1. There was the deficit in the balance of payment by 9.1. But in this year, there is the surplus in the balance of payment by $63.7 billion. So that is from the previous year. We have improved in our condition. There is the surplus that has happened of $63.7 billion. The valuation change was in negative. That means $19.7 billion of the lost that we handled. But in this year, there is the valuation change, that is the value has increased. So the valuation gain primarily reflecting the rise in the gold price amounted to $4.3 billion during the 2023-24 as against the loss that we have faced in the previous year of $19.7 billion. So in this year, the valuation actually improved rather than depreciating. Okay. Now next is that so in total, in the previous year, the foreign exchange reserves had depleted by $28.9 billion. But in this year, in this financial year of 2023-24, the foreign exchange reserves increased by $68 billion. Is it clear? So without the valuation effect, excluding the valuation effect, the balance of payment has got the surplus of $63.7 billion. So the foreign exchange reserves have increased by $63.7 billion. But if we include the valuation effect, that is then the foreign exchange reserves have increased by $68 billion because of the increase in prices of gold. Understood? Now, remember one thing also, that when we say that balance of payment has got the surplus of $63.7 billion. In the balance of payment accounts, we show it as negative, like when we show it in change in reserves. So we show it as negative 63.7 because from the balance of payment, if we are taking the balance of payment wala summary, so in the balance of payment summary, we show that the surplus has happened of 63.7. Then we show that from the balance of payment, the money is flowing out. When the money is flowing out to the reserves, it is shown as negative $63.7 billion. Okay, negative $63.7 billion to balance out this balance of payment. But when we are showing it in the foreign exchange reserves, so directly we can show that the foreign exchange reserves have increased by $63.7 because of the billion dollars, because of the foreign exchange, because of the balance of payment situation, and $4.3 billion because of the valuation effect. So that is in total 68.0. Okay. So that is increase in reserves. Here we are showing the increase in reserves as plus because the foreign exchange reserves, here we are taking the foreign exchange reserve situation. But if we have to show this in balance of payment it will be shown as negative. Increase in reserves will be shown as negative. So if we are taking the balance of payment situation, then the foreign exchange reserves will be shown as negative. So here we are taking the foreign exchange reserves. That's why it is for increase in reserves is taken as positive. I hope this is clear, everything. Now balance of payment during the 2023-24. So India's current account deficit has moderated to $23.2 billion from the $67 billion of the deficit. So in the previous year 2022-23 we were having the deficit of $67.0 billion, while in the 2023-24 we have got the deficit of only $23.2 billion. So the deficit has decreased in the current account from the 2% of the GDP to only 0.7% of the GDP. So that is a big thing, that the current account deficit has decreased from this 2.0% of the deficit to 0.7% of the GDP. Okay. Next is net invisibles. That is net invisibles. So the current account has trade in goods, trade in services, and the transfer payments. The trade in services and the transfer payments are considered the invisible trade. Okay, so the net invisible trade, you can understand, was higher during the 2023-24 than a year ago, primarily on account of the services and the transfer payments. That is included as the net invisibles, or that is included in the invisible trade. The portfolio investment has recorded a net inflow of $44.1 billion that I have shown you here also. That $44.1 billion of the inflow has happened in the foreign direct investment, in the foreign portfolio investment, sorry. So in the foreign portfolio investment, the net inflow that has happened is $44.1 billion, okay, as against only $5.2 billion a year ago. So there is a big change that has happened. Net FDI inflow has actually been $9.8 billion as compared to the previous year. In the previous year, 2022-23, there was higher of the FDI inflow that happened. But in this year, 23-24, the FDI inflow, the net inflow was in positive, but it was lesser than as compared to the previous year. In the 2023-24, there was an accretion of $63.7 billion to the foreign exchange reserves on a balance of payment basis. So as I have told you that if we are seeing on the balance of payment basis, there is a surplus of $63.7 billion. So when we are sending it to the reserves, we will show it as the increase in reserves or the change in reserves. We will show it as the negative $63.7 billion to make the balance of payment balanced out. Okay, so in the balance of payment situation, the increase in the reserves is shown as the negative. Okay, but when we are talking about the reserves, when we are only seeing the reserves and not from the balance of payment side, when we are seeing the reserves, we will say that the reserves have increased by $63.7 billion. In the books, it is usually, in the balance of payment, it is usually written as negative. So I do not want you to get confused, because from the balance of payment, the money is flowing to the reserves. So in the balance of payment, it will be shown as negative, because from the balance of payment account, the money is going out. So whenever the money is going out, so that is shown in the negative sign in the balance of payment wala situation. So in the balance of payment basis, the foreign exchange reserves have increased by 63.7 billion. So if we are talking about the foreign exchange reserves account, it will be the positive amount. Okay. Now coming to the next. So this is the idea about the balance of payment during 2023-24. The highest kind of benefit that we have got is from the current account. Why? Because the current account deficit has reduced from 2% of the GDP to 0.7% of the GDP. That is a very good amount. Okay. Next is the portfolio investment has recorded a net inflow of very huge amount as compared to the previous year. While if we see the net FDI, that has been positive in 2023-24, but that is lesser than the previous year. Okay, but the foreign exchange reserves have increased, so that is good. Now, if we see the quarterly data, that is quarter 4, usually the quarterly data is left out. But why we are seeing the quarterly data right now? Because in most of the newspapers, it is covered. This point is covered. This point is covered. So why this point is so important? You can understand that the India's current account surplus has happened. So in the quarter 4, usually, see, if we see the quarterly data also, the current account usually remains in deficit. The current account is usually in the deficit. But in the quarter 4 of the 2023-24, there is a magical thing that has happened, that the current account has got into surplus. The capital account has got into the surplus situation. So that's why most of the newspapers are covering it. And the idea is that the India's current account balance recorded a surplus. The current account has got into the surplus of US dollar $5.7 billion. That is 0.6% of the GDP in the quarter 4. As compared to the previous year, in the previous year, we have got the deficit of 0.2% of the GDP in the same quarter. So in the same quarter, that is in the quarter 4 of the previous year, 2022-23, we have got into the deficit of 0.2% of the GDP. But in the quarter of, that is quarter 4 of 23-24, we have got into the surplus of 0.6% of the GDP. If we compare it with the previous quarter of the same year, that is 23-24, in the previous quarter, we have got into the deficit of 1.0% of the GDP. So in the previous quarter, that is the October, November, December quarter of 2023-24, we have got into the deficit, current account deficit of 1%, while in the 2023-24 fourth quarter, we have got into the current account surplus of 0.6% of the GDP. Okay, so that you can see. Now, services exports has grew by 4.1% on an year-on-year basis in the quarter 4. So that is also good. That means the services has actually led, or the service growth is happening, that has led to the current account surplus, we can say, in the quarter 4 of the 2023-24. So here the point is written now that the services export, the mercantile trade deficit at US dollar $50.9 billion, so was lower than $52.6 billion a year ago. So mercantile trade deficit was high, but it was lower than the quarter 4 of the previous year. But the services has actually seen immense growth, that you can see, that is by 4.1% on a year-on-year basis. Okay, so the rest of the data you can read. Usually the percentage wala data is more important, so that you can read. Okay, otherwise quarterly data is not as important. You can just have a reading. Just remember the current account surplus has happened in the fourth quarter. So in the fourth quarter, in the quarter 4 of the 2023-24, there is the surplus that has happened in the current account, 0.6% of the GDP. If we compare it with the previous year, that is quarter 3 of the 2023-24, there was 1% of the deficit actually. And if we compare it with the quarter 4 of the 2022-23, there was 0.2% of the deficit. 0.2% of GDP was the deficit in the current account. Okay, 1% of the GDP was the deficit. So in the quarter 4 2023-24 we have got the surplus in the current account as 0.6% of the GDP, while in the quarter 3 of the same year we have got the deficit of 1% of the GDP, while if we compare it with the quarter 4 of the previous year we have got the 0.2% of the GDP as the deficit. So this is the complete idea that you have to understand, and why the deficit has reduced or why there is the surplus that has happened, we can say. So that is the services have grown by 4.5%, 4.4% on the year on 4.1% on the year on year basis. The services exports have grew by 4.1% on an year basis in the fourth quarter. Now is it clear? Everything is clear now? Any confusion, anyone, in this regards, in any of the topic that we have discussed today? So we have discussed the reserves wala situation, that okay, the foreign exchange reserves have increased by 68.4%. The foreign exchange reserves have it has increased by $68 billion. The foreign exchange reserves have increased by $68 billion, from which the balance of payment surplus is this, and there is the valuation change that has happened. Okay, then we have discussed about the balance of payment situation also, that what is the balance of payment situation on the year basis. On the year basis, the current account deficit has reduced from 2% of the GDP to 0.7% of the GDP from 2022-23 to 23-24. So this is very, very important that you must know about. As well as the invisible receipts have increased, portfolio investment has increased, the FDI, the foreign direct investment, is in positive, but it has decreased from the previous year. Net accretion has happened in the balance of payment, that is the surplus has happened in the balance of payment. Now this is the data for the quarterly, that is the 2 points that are most important is the current account surplus happened in the fourth quarter, while the services exports grew by 4.1%. Ma'am, Finance 360 enough for RBI phase 1 and phase 2. See, in this series we do the most important we can say, and the typical kind of notifications that are otherwise hard to understand. But I have told you that how to read the RBI website. So I will suggest you that to go to the RBI website also to get the clarity that there are some small topics that are coming. Okay, so that also you have to cover. Any confusion? Superb explanation. Thank you so much, Pratul. Means a lot. No confusion. Clear, everyone? This is the first question. Okay, if I say that in the quarter 4 there is the surplus that has happened in the 2023-24, so what is that surplus as a percentage of GDP, you have to tell. And in the year on year basis, that is in 2023-24, if there is the deficit, what is that deficit in the current account? So in the quarter 4 there is the surplus that has happened of 0.6% of the GDP. Okay, there is the quarter 4, there is the surplus in the current account, that is 0.6% of the GDP. In 2023-24, there is the deficit in the current account as what percentage of GDP, that you have to tell me. Okay, so only in quarter 4 there is the surplus. Remember this also, that only in the quarter 4 there is the talk about the surplus in this whole video. Okay, so yes, now before going to the second question, I want to show you that if you go to edutap.co.in, you can go to free material, you can go to the blogs. If you want to know more about any particular examination, let's say you want to know about the, okay, so let's say you want to know more about any of the particular examination. So if you want to get the exam information, you can go to the exam information. And if you want to know more about RBI grade B, so regarding the RBI grade B, you can get the exam information, you can get different information about the exam analysis, the eligibility criteria, the cutoff marks and such. If you go to the strategy, you can know about the strategy for the examination, for the different components for the examination. If you want to know that how the toppers have achieved their dream, so you can read the blogs about that what strategy they have followed, right? So this is the idea, that these are the free blogs that are provided to you, so that you can read about the examination that you are preparing for, so that you can get more information about it. Okay, So this is the idea, and if you go to the main page, you just have to go to the free material, you have to go to the blogs, and you have to go to the end of the page. If you want to know about a particular examination, you can just go to the exam information and you can search for your particular exam that you are preparing for. Okay. So this is it. As well as if you want to know about the courses for a particular examination, so that is also available here. So if you want to know about the courses, you just have to go to the page, and here you can know about the courses. Okay. In the courses section, you can know about a particular, like if you want to know about the RBI Grade B course or something, so you can know about that what are the courses that are provided by EduTap and so. So this is the whole idea. Now coming back to the question, so this is the first question, very easy to answer. Now this is the second question. I hope you will be able to answer this question. This is the second question. You're most welcome, Suparva. Now coming, like there is a big announcement from EduTap that we have brought for you the guidebooks. These are the guidebooks for your comprehensive preparation. These are the comprehensive guidebook for the RBI Grade B, NABARD Grade A, as well as for SEBI Grade A. There are the guidebooks, and you can easily download them through the description box below. There is the link that is provided in the description box below. You can download it from there, and the information about the examination is provided in these guidebooks. They are very comprehensive, as well as the previous year questions are also provided with these guidebook. So the link is provided in the description box below. They are absolutely free of cost, so you can take these guidebooks for your better preparation. Okay, so thank you very much everyone. Thank you for joining the session. Do tell me in the comment section that what is the answer of the homework question, and if you have any confusion, comment down below. I will try to cater to your confusion also. Thank you everyone. Thank you for joining the session. You're most welcome, Ritika. Thank you everyone. Do comment down below about the homework answers, as well as if you have any confusion or if you are liking the sessions.